we all follow the recent events in Asia, ranging from Nepal, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and so on. You could see how the social media platform, the digital platforms, play a very important role in these events, which I think will be an issue for us to discuss today in this meeting. So Timor-Leste believes that we must act with both urgency and wisdom. Allow me to highlight 5 priorities. First, we need to invest in digital and media literacy. Our people, especially the young, must be equipped to question, verify, and think critically. An informed citizenry is the most vigorous defense. Second, we need to protect and empower independent journalism, as my friend Ambassador of Senegal mentioned today. So local credible media must serve as anchors of truth, particularly in our society today. Third, demand greater accountability from digital platforms. Transparency on algorithms, curbs on harmful amplification, and more decisive action against coordinated false campaigns are essential. Regulation must be fair, and they must be clear to protect citizens without eroding freedoms. And fourth, we need to strengthen international cooperation. Disinformation crosses borders very instantly, as we refer to what happened in Asia this week and last week.
They miss out the Pacific, and that is the truth. It is the truth. I come from that part of the world where there's no conflict. Small ones, like men sometimes fight over women, fight over coconut trees, but they're easily settled. It's a small problem, small conflicts, but not the kind of conflict we find in other countries, right? Ukraine, Middle East, you name them. Asia, Africa, sorry for naming. But it means that you have a lot of work to do. Those countries having problems, you have a lot of work to do. Me too, I have a lot to learn from you. Because I don't want that to happen to my region. And I want the Pacific to be like other regions. The Pacific is very peaceful. Very peaceful, I tell you. I was born and raised in that country, that region of the world called the Pacific. In a country called Kiribati. Kiribati comes from the English word Gilbert Islands. We named it Kiribati because of Gilbert. It's an English name. But anyway, I'm here to talk about how we maintain the peace. You must start with the individual. If you're peaceful inside you, you can transfer that peace, share it with the next one, next, and the next, and the next. But if you're not peaceful yourself, you're in trouble. You're gonna cause trouble to other people. I started believing in culture. The culture is very important in the family. You know, I have believe in husband, wife, children. I believe in grandchildren. I'm a grandpa now. I have one granddaughter studying the law at university. Keep telling her, keep the culture. The culture is very important. If you lose your culture, you're no longer a good human being. You're gonna be lost, like a piece of log floating in the ocean, no direction. You must have a culture. Culture will hold you. The culture will give you the ground, the anchor, and you know the direction. Culture means you're disciplined. You must be disciplined. We are not totally free. I am against this idea of free. Okay, free, but it's got to be disciplined. If you believe in freedom without any dimensions, then you're wrong. I don't believe in that. That's what I tell young people. As president of my country, I make sure all the media are controlled by law. I'm not saying they're not independent. They're independent. I believe in what Timor-Leste is saying, that they've got to be free, independent. Yeah, but it's got to be law. There's got to be law. What is the law? The law you got to do it right. Responsible journalism. Don't write anything at all that you think is good for you, and you forget about the others. Write something that is truthful, and truthful means it must be factual. Don't write anything just to stir up people, because there's a word here. There's a phrase in our language. Word leads to feelings. Feeling leads to action. WFA. WFA is a connection there. Word, you begin with word, like I'm speaking now. I don't know how you feel about me, but yeah, I'm sure you must be happy with what I'm saying. I can see people nodding. I must say things which I believe are good, and I want you to appreciate what I say. So start with good truth, words which are true. I'm saying something which is true from my heart. I hope you feel it, and I hope you feel good. And then, on the other hand, if I start saying things which are not true, I start manipulating it, that's manipulation. Why? Why manipulate? Because maybe the politics, maybe I want to win votes. That's wrong. So I believe in the proper use of the media. The word must be proper, must be truthful. I'm not too sure now what is the truth about, even talking about Ukraine. What is the truth? I hear from the Russians, I hear from Ukrainian people, I hear from the United States, I hear from Britain, from France. I just don't know. What's the truth? I want to vote in the UN sometimes, I want to vote for the truth, but sometimes I'm confused. There's too much information. I'm not sure which is the truth. Even between the Democrat and the Republican in the United States, where's the truth? When Trump is doing this, the other side say, no, it's wrong. Where's the truth? I want to know. You can help me with that. So, we must believe in peace. We believe in peace, let's do the peaceful thing. We must convey messages that will contribute to peace. If you're a journalist, you must write articles in a way not to stir up people, not to spark conflicts. Do it in a way that will harmonize the society, bring the people together, right? And if you all do that, then we are certainly contributing to the peace of the world. So let me end by saying, let us all do that. Let's do our best to do the right thing, to be peaceful within ourselves before we become peaceful to others. Thank you.
A great transition for our next panelist. We will hear next from Ms. Damilola Banjo. Ms. Banjo is an award-winning staff reporter and an investigative journalist for Past Blue. It is an independent, women-led, non-media news company. I think I speak for everyone in saying that we're eager to hear the scoop and really hear your personal expertise regarding how journalism and storytelling overall can contribute to conflict prevention and post-conflict reconciliation.
It is mentioned the importance of media literacy. But it's important to say that as a journalist, I do not negotiate resolutions. I do not sit behind country nameplates like the ambassadors do. My job is to sit in press galleries, to listen, to act, and most importantly, to tell the stories of what happens at United Nations. At Past Blue, we take this very, very seriously. The job we do as journalists, I think, and I hope you all do agree with me, is directly tied to the founding values of the United Nations: truth, accountability, and transparency. These values are the ethical building guidelines which responsible journalism is built upon. When the UN was created, the world was reeling from wars built on lies. Lies about people, lies about power, lies about who belonged and who didn't. It was to prevent future global conflicts by fostering international peace and security. The core purpose outlined in the UN Charter is to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, affirm faith in fundamental human rights, establish conditions for justice and international law, and promote social progress and better living standards for all. Today, we have wars raging across multiple continents, like the ambassador clearly highlighted. Human rights are being debated and excused by powerful countries and their allies. International law is flouted with reckless abandon by those with the abundance of destruction weapons, and harmless civilians are being reduced to numbers. As journalists, my colleagues and I bear the responsibility to remind ambassadors, diplomats, world leaders, and even ourselves that we, the peoples, are failing to create a world that promotes social progress and better living standard for all. And this as envisioned by member states in San Francisco 80 years ago. The charter was written to counter these destructive lies with a commitment to dignity, justice, collective responsibility. And again I say, it is the responsibility of we, the peoples. But here's the challenge. The UN often move at the pace of 1,000 words negotiation, while information, either true or false, move at the speed of 140 character posts or a 30-second video shot on a smartphone. In the digital age, misinformation spreads in seconds. While the UN sometimes takes weeks or months to issue carefully balanced statements, that gap is where trust is lost. I've seen firsthand in covering conflicts, whether in Gaza, Sudan, or Ukraine, misinformation often raised ahead of facts. In some cases, rumor about what the UN is doing or what the UN isn't doing spread faster than the actual UN response on the ground. And once the narrative takes hold online, it's very, very hard to reverse. Although there are moments where the UN and the media together have made progress in bridging gaps. I think back to 2016, and this is fresh in my head because I just wrote an article about it. When the candidates for Secretary General took part in the first ever public town hall. For the first time, people around the world could watch selection process unfold. The breakthrough didn't happen by accident. It happened because civil societies, journalists kept pushing for openness. Transparency worked. The sad reality about that is today, almost 10 years after, the UN missed the opportunity to codify this process and foster an environment that makes transparency and accountability a necessity, not an option that could be threatened. I'm talking about the recent reports by the ad hoc committee on revitalization work of the GA as adopted on September 5. So what does it mean to uphold the UN founding values in the digital age? To me, it means three things. Telling the truth quickly before disinformation fills the silence. Making diplomacy accessible, not hiding behind closed doors and acronyms. The UN has so much acronyms. Remembering that behind every headlines, whether Gaza, Sudan, Ukraine, there are real people whose lives depend on the UN being trusted. The UN was founded on the belief that words and truth can prevent wars. Today, when lies travel faster than resolution, the responsibility on journalists and this institution is even much more greater. I end with the saying that I only learned this morning. Lies make a lap around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. Thank you.
Our next panelist will be Ms. Carrie Ginnerup. She is a program analyst with the youth team in the Governance, Rule of Law, and Peace Building Hub at the United Nations Development Program headquarters here in New York. Before joining the UN, she worked with the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs and at the national newspaper Politiken. Ms. Ginnerup will speak regarding the importance of ensuring that youth voices are not excluded from media narratives, and she will speak on the role of youth in restoring transparency and truth and communication.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Having both myself work both in media and with media and with young people, and as a young person, this conversation today really resonates. So thank you so much to the organizers, HWPL, Timor-Leste, and Senegal for bringing us together today, and also bringing a spotlight and bringing young people into the conversation. It's a pleasure to join you all today in the lead up really to the International Day of Peace, but also the International Day of Democracy, which is on the 15th of September next week, and also as we mark the 10-year anniversary of the Youth Peace and Security Agenda. I think this is a timely moment to reflect not only on the role of media in upholding peace, but also on how young people, which are now the largest and most connected young generation in history, are really shaping and also transforming today's media and information landscape. As we have heard already today, in polarized societies, media actors ranging from traditional journalists to digital content creators play a pivotal role in shaping public discourse. And with the right support, they can become powerful agents of peace, dialogue, and mutual understanding, also in divided contexts. And I think among these actors, young people stand out not only as media users, but also as creators, journalists, fact-checkers, and storytellers. And in every corner of the world, young people are producing new narratives of coexistence, integrity, and inclusion at a time when mis and disinformation, hate speech, and polarization risks undermining trust in institutions and fuel tensions. And at UNDP, we see inspiring examples across the world, young journalists holding leaders accountable, youth-led platforms countering online hate, and harmful narratives with messages of inclusion, and also creative digital campaigns that bridge divides across communities. So please allow me just to share a few examples from UNDP's work from around the world, which show how, really show the power of young media actors. For instance, in Lebanon, where media polarization often deepens divides, UNDP has trained more than 180 young journalists in fact-checking and in countering hate speech, and we've supported the launch of Sawab, which is Lebanon's first youth-led fact-checking initiative. So these young voices are producing digital content, fact-checked reports, and public campaigns that strengthen media literacy and foster inclusive dialogue. In Burkina Faso, UNDP has trained citizen watch leaders, many of them young bloggers and community radio hosts, on non-violent communication and the dangers of misinformation. They now use radio, video, and online platforms in their local languages, which is important, I think, to counter divisive narratives and promote peace in communities facing fragile security conditions. And in Timor-Leste, through the Democracia Bis initiative, UNDP is working with young people to make democratic institutions more transparent and inclusive. So a youth-led podcast produced in local languages, travels around in rural communities, and brings parliamentary debates and civic issues closer to citizens and young people. And by amplifying young people's perspectives through digital media and through podcasts, this initiative really strengthens accountability and deepens democratic culture. At UNDP, our approach builds on 3 pillars. One is, first of all, strengthening young people's capacities to enhance critical thinking, digital responsibility, and resilience against misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech, and also gendered disinformation is included. Also supporting youth-led media and communication initiatives that promote dialogue, inclusion, and social cohesion while actively countering information pollution. Thirdly, also empowering young people to participate in digital governance and really to engage in advocacy and shape policies and advance leadership on digital rights and information integrity. This work is anchored in our Open and Inclusive Public Sphere portfolio, which promotes civic engagement and access to quality information and inclusive participation in public life. Again, in polarized societies, this means not only supporting young people as consumers of information, but also supporting young journalists and content creators to foster inclusive dialogue, counter disinformation, and promote social
Questions. And so we'll take the first question from the floor.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say I would appreciate the HWPL creating this wonderful panel and bringing us into light this very important information. As a head of a non-profit working day to day with the youth and adults in all different sectors of life, my question is that the rapid and fast influence of social media and digital media we are seeing, and is there any campaign or plan in the progress which we can educate people or youngsters and on a routine basis like from school, or is there possible any kind of disclaimer that can be issued before the stories and programs the media and journalists and before they portray their stories to be make sure that it's based on the truth and is not sharing the disinformation. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll take one more question if there are any additional questions. Yes.
My concern about how we'll control the media, social media. We saw in Nepal last few days, before that in Bangladesh, and during the Black Lives movement happened in New York City itself, it was horrible, destroying all the stuff. That's not good. We have emotions. How come we can attack on somebody's property? How government is going to control this situation? How UN is going to guide the governments?
Thank you for both of those questions. And so from our panelists, are there any comments or any responses to either of the questions that were just posed?
I mean, I think the two questions are a little similar in terms of just asking how do you handle the impacts of news that gets out there through social media, being that social media is very fast-paced. Well, I think first is we need to understand and come to that realization that social media is here and it's here to stay. Now, how do we use it so that we minimize the disadvantages that comes with it and maximize the opportunity? And one of the things that's been highlighted today is media literacy. Kids in school should be taught responsible use of their phones, so social media. If you post a video, it does have implications. People do need to be trained to know and be at the top of their voice before they click post that there are people behind those phones and they have emotions, like the ambassador said. So a lot of media literacy, a lot of education for young people. We need to do that as an institution, as a country, as organization. We need multiple layered efforts to train, to teach young people to be more responsible in the way that they use social media. On the flip side, in traditional organizations and institutions that have been here longer than social media, who are just adapting to the use of social media, you need to also catch up and know that that is where the information, the people you want to get this information, they are on social media. And you need to be able to package those important life-saving information that institutions, traditional institutions have because of year of expertise, of being in this field, they've developed strong expertise in that. You need to be able to condense that into 140 character. It's difficult. But you need to be able to condense all of this wisdom in snappy, creative ways so that you can get to young people who are using this social media, so that there's two-way communication in such that young people are communicating using social media, you're missing it. Older generation are communicating through the traditional means, the young people are missing it. So there has to be education on both sides. Responsibility on the part of young people, and just technical know-how of how to use social media on the part of the older generation. And I think if we have these two synergy, we'll reap more positive dividend of social media.
Thank you, Ms. Bonjo. So the key is really education. Education, media literacy, and actually before we conclude for today, we will have a media literacy workshop so that we can get an example and insight on what this looks like and what our youth could be exposed to, and what really, like you said, on both sides could be exposed to, so that everyone has this education as well. Any additional comments from our panelists?
I'll just be very briefly. I think the journalist actually explained very well already. The question that was placed for us to look at is how do you control the media? Of course, in this era of digital age, where so many digital platforms actually are being created, even as we talk now, new platforms have been and in the name of democracy and transparency and freedom of expression and all these things are. I think it has to do with what the ambassador of Cuba actually mentioned in his opening remarks. It's all going back to us. That's the first thing, apart from literacy and other things. But the second thing is also we need to have decisive action against these coordinated false campaigns. This is essential, and because we need to have, and to do that, what should we do to do that? There should be regulations and protecting citizens without eroding their freedoms. Because we cannot curb, we cannot control, we cannot curb the information. And I like the way, sorry, I forgot the name. Damilola.
That's it.
That's right. Dami saying that, lies make lives around the world. Why the truth still putting on their shoes? Right? And we cannot control that. So I think, there has to be more multifaceted approach. And discussions like these are very important. And because the platforms, the digital platforms themselves, allows for the freedom of spread of information, I think for all of us who have good intentions, we need to actually be quicker than the lies. I think that's the central, critical point that all of us should look at. So what should we do? It's all going back to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you to the audience for asking these questions. And as we wrap up our panel at this time, we're going to take some commemorative photos, actually just with our speakers. And so I'm going to ask our HWPL U.S. East Coast Director to join us. We'll also have Dr. Melda will also join us as well. She will be doing the media literacy workshop. So we will now take a couple of commemorative photos, and then we will continue into the next segment of our